Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today is day 2 of Halloweek-end. I'm so excited. And if y'all don't know what Halloweek-end is, it's basically where yesterday Hallows Eve and today Halloween Day, I am uploading cases that occurred around Halloween. Now, if you didn't get a chance to check out yesterday's video, don't worry because I got you, girl. It's right here up in the iCards and the Q cards, whatever y'all want to call them, it's there. And y'all can go ahead and watch it real quick. And I'm gonna be sitting here, I'm gonna be waiting for you, and when you're ready, we can go. Real quick before we start, I got my blanket with me because it's cold down here and your girl just ain't got time. I'm not a fan of the cold. It's not me. That's not what I do. I love fall, but I love it because I can have like cozy shit like this. Anyways, so with that being said, we're just gonna go ahead and jump in because y'all, today's case is something. Alright y'all, so it's Halloween of 1984 and married couple Charles and Doreen Erbert is at home chilling with their daughter, 4-year-old Deanna Erbert. Now, the trick-or-treaters have started to slow down. It's starting to get late. Everybody's going home. The kids is trying to get hyped up on candy. And the night is pretty much just dying down. So, Charles decided that he's going to go ahead and head to the store. And he's going to go to the store for drinks and more candy. I'm not 100% sure why he's going to go get more candy. Drinks, I completely understand. But candy, I don't know. He really should have just waited till the next day because that's when all the Halloween candy is on sale, my guy. But he might not have known that, and he just went out to go get some more candy. And so Charles leaves the house to go run his errands, and he's only gone for a couple minutes. He's really not gone for that long. It's only between like 20 and 30 minutes that he's out of the house. And when he comes back, he comes home to realize that his wife, Doreen, has been severely attacked. Doreen was born Doreen Hitchens on November 29th of 1952. It's said that she had like a really good childhood. There was no abuse in her family. Her parents loved her. She had 2 siblings, a brother and a sister, and they all got along fairly well. And you know, it was just a pretty typical household. She was described by her family as loving and she had a personality where she just cared about people, so much so that she would become a physical therapist and she would even go on to volunteer at schools. In January of 1972, when Doreen was just 19 years old, she would meet a man named William Michael Dennis through mutual friends. And not long after this, in August of 1972, he would become her first husband. William Michael Dennis, who also went by Mike, was born in 1950. I don't really have an exact birthday for him for whatever reason, but he lived a pretty middle-class life. His parents didn't have the most, but they weren't exactly poor either. So he pretty much lived a normal life just like Doreen, and his parents were very loving, no abuse reported. But there would be trouble in his life though, because he was hard of hearing, and y'all know the kids are assholes. So and then it's like, you know how we have like they have those like small little hearing aids now. They wasn't like that back in the 1950s or 60s when he was growing up. They was like some big, like, you know, like the big things. So he would get picked on for that. And not only was he hard of hearing, he said that by the age of 10 he would become fat. Like, he would get fat. His words, not mine. So a fat kid with hearing problems, like, he's the main target. And he said he would get picked on quite a bit. Aside from the fact that he would get picked on, he had average grades. He was well behaved. He really didn't disobey his parents. He didn't disobey the teachers. He didn't cause too much trouble in school, but he would get in quite a couple of fights. He said he never picked the fights though. He said he only picked one. He only threw the first punch one time. Every other time it was people who thought that just because he couldn't hear, he couldn't throw hands either. And he had to let them know that listen, I'm hard of hearing. My hands work just fine. So he would have to throw them hands every now and again. But anyways, like I said, he would meet Doreen in January of 1972. He was 21 years old, and they would get married in August of 1972. Now, 3 years after they got married, in April of 1976, they would have a first son, Paul. Now, Paul, he was described as a daddy's boy. Michael said that Doreen, she was the type, she was like me. She liked to sleep in. She not trying to get up. She been getting up in the middle of the night all damn night, and she not waking up early in the morning. You got this, bruh. And so he would have Paul's milk ready for him, and they would pretty much bond over food. And Paul is pretty much like me. You feed me, I love you. Nah, but seriously, they had that daddy-son bond that like nobody but a father and a son who are really close could explain. Now, while things for Doreen and Mike were going well in the beginning, things started to take a turn and they would be divorced by 1977. But when they did divorce though, they had like the typical custody agreement, what I would think is typical, because the mother had primary custody, if you will, and the father had weekend visitation. So he saw his son every single weekend while Doreen had Paul during the week. So not long after their divorce, Doreen just riding down the highway, just, you know, cruising, and I was about to say boozing. She not cruising and boozing because we don't drink and drive. But she was cruising down the road or whatever, and she catch a flat tire, and this is when she would meet her next husband, Charles. So he comes to her rescue. He helps her out with the flat tire, and they get to talking, and they realize that they kind of like each other. So they go on a couple dates, and not too long after that, they become husband and wife in 1978. In November of 1979, they will welcome their first baby girl, Deanna. So at this point, Doreen has two children. She has Paul from a previous marriage, and she has baby girl, Deanna. And things are pretty much just moving along. Mike is seeing Paul every weekend as per the custody agreement, and Charles and Doreen are pretty much just living life as a married couple with two children now. And that's pretty much just the routine now. That is until February 7th of 1980. Now, at the beginning of the day, everything is going as usual. Paul is with his dad. I believe it's a Sunday because Michael has to drop Paul back off with his mother. But before that, they're having just a regular day that they have. They're doing father and son things. And at 1:15 p.m., it's time for Michael to drop Paul back off to Doreen. When he drops Paul off, Paul does not want to go in the house. He's crying. He's hysterical. And Michael has to physically pick him up and take him into the house because he just doesn't want to go back home. He wants to stay with his dad. Y'all all know, like, when kids are attached to their parents, they don't want to go. They want them to stay forever. So after he dropped Paul's off, Michael goes on about his day. And Paul is now with Doreen. And at around 2:20 p.m., Doreen will be calling the ambulance because her son had fallen into the family pool. So when the medical professionals arrived, they would rush Paul to the hospital where he would stay on life support for the next week. Unfortunately, the family had to make the decision to take Paul off of life support, and he would pass away 3 days later on February 17th of 1980. Now, while everybody was distraught, Mike took this exceptionally hard. He couldn't understand how his son had fallen into the pool when they knew that there was a problem, because previously Doreen and Charles's family dog have dug a hole in the fence that was surrounding the pool and had somehow got into the pool and drowned. And now it was his son. He just didn't feel like his son should be dead. So he in turn filed a wrongful death suit against Charles and Doreen. Michael said that after Paul's death, he had asked Doreen for a couple of things. He had asked for the child support back for February because she could no longer use it. He asked for pictures of Paul, and he also asked for her to help pay for the medical costs of Paul's burial and, like, you know, just all of the medical bills for him staying in the hospital and everything like that. And she pretty much just denied everything. And so that was just the basis of his civil suit. Like, first of all, it was wrongful death. And second of all, he wanted all of the things that he had asked for. So it had taken 2 years to go to trial. And in 1982, the judge had ruled that basically Michael lost. He did not win the civil suit. There was no negligence found on Charles and Doreen's part. So after the trial, everybody pretty much just goes on to live their separate lives. Michael goes over here and Doreen and Charles go over here with their daughter Deanna. So about 2 years pass and little Deanna is now 4 years old, and Charles and Doreen find out that they are expecting another baby. So they are expecting their new baby boy to arrive in November of 1984. Unfortunately, before that can happen, like I said, on Halloween night of 1984, Doreen would be savagely attacked. So Charles goes out to go get the candy and the drinks, and in the time while he is gone, a knock comes on the door, and it's not like a regular knock. It's like a boom, boom, boom. type of knock. And so Doreen goes to answer the door, and as soon as she opens the door, a man in a wolf mask is there with a machete, and he says, "I'm gonna kill you." And he just starts going ham. And Doreen's first thought is not even herself, it's her little baby girl Deanna, and she yells to Deanna, and she tells her to hide. And little Deanna, she runs behind a couch and she stays there. She hides. This wolfman is savagely slashing Doreen. He slashes her over 25 times in the face, neck, hands, abdomen, just everywhere. She is being viciously attacked. So after the attacker is finished with Doreen, he walks around the house for a little bit and he's calling out to Deanna. He's calling her name, and thank God this little girl has the wherewithal to just stay where she is. She stays put. He doesn't find Deanna and he ends up leaving. And so this is when Charles will return home about 30 minutes after he left to find his wife. Of course, he calls the police. He's in a panic. He's going freaking crazy. And the police are thinking the same thing that I was thinking, like, bruh, you left for 30 minutes and it just so happened that the time you was gone, your wife gets attacked. Sir, you could have came up with a better story than that, but So they take Charles down to the police station for questioning. And during the search of the house, this is when they find Deanna, and they take her to not child protective services, but they take her away because they understand that this child has just gone through something very traumatic, and she's pretty much the only witness here, and they have to handle her with pretty much just kitten gloves. So I'm not really 100% sure where they take her, but they do take her away and they take Charles down for questioning. I forgot to mention that when Charles got home, Doreen still had a pulse, so the police actually ended up rushing her to the hospital. But unfortunately, while Charles was in custody, Doreen passed away, as well as their unborn child. So while Charles is at the police station, the police are canvassing the neighborhood. They're talking to the residents, they're talking to neighbors, and Charles and Doreen lived at the end of the cul-de-sac, so the people at the front of the cul-de-sac really didn't see too much, but there was one neighbor who saw a guy in a wolf mask who was just kind of standing around. He was just watching the house. I mean, just like eyes focused, tunnel vision on this house. And it was a little weird because he wasn't like a part of like a group or anything like that. He was just like a lone wolf, literally just staring at this house. And he kind of thought it was weird, but then again, it was kind of like, nah, it's not really that weird. I mean, it is Halloween. People are weird as fuck and creepy. So, I don't know. And when they heard this, their ears perked up because while the investigators were in the house, they ran across a wolf mask. So they were like, oh my God, this has to be the person. But the problem is, this is 1984 and DNA ain't no help at this point. So they just got to do the legwork. And they get to talking to more people, and Michael's name comes up, her ex-husband. Now, people said that he was still holding on to a little bit of resentment because of his son's death, but they hadn't really spoken in the past 2 years. So it was kind of unlikely, but they just threw the name out there just in case. So the police find out where Michael lives and they go to his home. The investigators get to Michael's house and they knocking on the door, knock. Nobody's coming to the door, but they know somebody's home because they can hear water running and it's a light on. And they like, well, why he not coming to the door? We know you home. We can damn near see you. So they just keep on knocking. And finally, Michael comes to the door. When he comes to the door, he has on a robe and he has his hands in his pocket. And the police are like, hey, sir, we're here. And unfortunately, we are investigating the death of your ex-wife. And Michael goes something to the effect of, huh, really? It's like no shock. No, like, oh my God, really? It's kind of just like, huh, you don't say. And so he invites the investigators in, and they get to talking, they get to chit-chatting, and they eventually ask Michael, can they search his property? Michael says yes, and he gives consent. And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? I have nothing to hide. He in turn has to sign a document. Now, it's clear that Michael's not left-handed because he's struggling to sign, but he can't sign with his right hand because it's all taped up and like gauzed up. And the officer asks, like, hey, what happened to your hand, my guy? And he's like, oh yeah, I was just tossing knives, and I didn't catch it. And one time I didn't catch it at the butt of the knife. I actually ended up catching it at the blade. And it's like, bro, you tossing knives? Like, who tosses, like, you, like, what? But anyways, we digress. And so the investigators, they keep looking around, and one investigator actually is looking outside, and he sees just kind of like a trail of blood, if you will. Like, he sees blood on the steering wheel of Michael's car, on the steps outside in the grass, and he's just like, alright, bruh. So they ended up arresting Michael, and they hold him on a 48-hour hold because in the state of California, you have 48 hours. You can only hold somebody for 48 hours if you don't have like evidence to actually convict them. So they get him on that 48-hour hold, and this is when they get a search warrant to search his house fully. Now, when they go search his house, they find in the garage two coffins. Two handmade coffins, one that will fit Charles, and one that is significantly shorter that would have fit Doreen. Now, because Doreen was only like 4'11", so she was a short woman. Investigators found that kind of funny. But unfortunately, they didn't have a lot of physical evidence. This is all just circumstantial evidence. So they couldn't really hold him too much longer after that. They ended up having to let him go. Now, by this time, the public has gotten wind of the murders. And like I said, it was not only Doreen, but it was also her unborn child. So people are pretty much just furious. I mean, furious at the fact that Michael had to get let go, because everything at this point, like I said, was circumstantial. Even though it was the coffins, the blood, everything, they didn't really have anything to hold him. I forgot to mention that they also found a machete receipt. I mean, it's looking like, Mike, you did it, but we can't really prove that you did it. I mean, so yeah. Until the blood results come back, they really don't have nothing. So that's exactly what happened. They had to let Michael go until the blood work came back. Now, it's also, again, like I said, it's 1984. They don't have DNA. So what they really do rely on is blood typing. And as we all could have guessed, the blood sample, the blood that was matched at the crime scene matched Michael's blood type, and it was intermingled with Doreen's blood. So they re-arrested Michael a couple days later, and they formally charged him with the murder of Doreen and her unborn child. So while they have him rearrested, they go through Michael's house again, and they find an address book. And the detective is just, the little black book that we used to have to keep because we didn't have cell phones and we had to actually write down or remember people's numbers. Yeah, that little black book. He going through that. And so he goes through the black book, and he's calling people. And he gets to this one number, and this particular lady is like, oh yeah, I remember him because last year we went to a Halloween party and he was wearing a wolf mask. And the detective is like, oh, word? You don't say. Tell me more. So she's like, yeah, we took a bunch of pictures, blah, 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 blah. And the detective was like, you got those pictures? And she's like, yeah, I sure do. And sure enough, when the detective went and got those pictures, this was the same exact wolf mask that was found at the crime scene. So Mikey is looking a little bad for you. So this is when he was formally charged for first-degree murder for Doreen and second-degree murder for her unborn child. At first, Michael pleaded not guilty, and then during the trial, he changed his plea to guilty, but by reason of insanity. And basically, he lost. Ultimately, Michael was sentenced to death for the horrific crime that he committed. Now, later on in interviews, Michael will go on to say that he pretty much, he did commit the crime. He admits to it now. But he said that he didn't know that Doreen was pregnant. And in my mind, I'm like, first of all, she was 8 months pregnant. She was due the very next month. How do you not know she's pregnant? And she was described by friends and family as wide as she was tall, because like I said, Doreen was short. So they was basically saying that she had like a really, really big belly. And it's like you come in and maybe in his blind rage, he didn't see her belly, but at some point he knew she was pregnant. And I'm gonna tell y'all why real quick. And I'm about to go into the gruesome details. I'm about to say some stuff that some of y'all might not want to hear. So if you don't, I mean, go ahead and click off right now, but I'm gonna just give it to y'all the way he gave it to us. Because in an interview, Michael said that he didn't know that Doreen was pregnant until he sliced her across the abdomen and the baby just popped out, basically. Because what I didn't tell y'all is that the fetus was found a couple feet away from Doreen on the living room floor. So he comes in, he starts, his attack, and at some point he slices her across the abdomen, and he was like, a bunch of water came out, and then the baby just kind of popped out. And I was like, well, damn it, you knew she was pregnant then, and you didn't stop then, because I don't want to say that the baby would have survived, because we don't really know, but under any other circumstance, if Doreen had given birth to that child on that day, on October 31st of 1984, he would have had a good chance of surviving. Basically, his reasoning, though, for the attack is that he legit felt like Doreen was the cause of his son's death. And he don't feel like he should be on death row. And now I know a lot of y'all are probably gonna come for my whole entire life, but I can almost see where he's coming from. And this is why. Let me explain. Because he said that he should be in jail, but he don't feel like he should be on death row because it was heat of passion. And he genuinely feels like Doreen was the cause of his son's death. Like she caused his son's death. And let me tell you something. If somebody caused my child's death, or if they kill my kids, I'm out here and I'm on a murder spree. Stop playing with me, because it's chitty chitty bang bang in this motherfucker. Y'all ain't living past 2 months. Like, especially if I live that close to y'all. And he better than me because he let it fester for what, 4 years? Sis, I'm coming at your head every damn day. Stop playing with me. So that way, in that sense, I can understand that it was a heat of passion, because he genuinely felt like she killed his son. But then again, at the same time, it's like, bro, you kind of premeditated this, and it wasn't just like you saw them out on the street and then you just popped off. You went to this person's house. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, in a sense, I can understand it, but then on the other hand, it's like, not really. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this case. Thank you all so much for joining me for Halloweek-end. I'm so excited about putting these videos out. I can't wait to see how y'all react to it. Please let me know of any case suggestions that y'all have in the comments below. And yeah, thank you all so much. I will see you all next week.